Well, voters in Michigan back in November of 2008 passed a resolution to allow the medicinal use of marijuana in this state. And ever since that day, there's been a lot of confusion over how this is going to work. There is a big disconnect between those involved in the profession and law enforcement in the state right now. Number of cases that are going in front of judges right now where people have been following the letter of the law but are still being brought up on charges in the state of Michigan. And joining me right now, once again, to talk about it is Michael Komorn. He's a defense attorney who represents medical marijuana patients here in the state. And Michael, we appreciate you coming back to talk to us on the program once again. We've talked to law enforcement about this in the past, and I think that's the issue. There seems to be a lot of confusion as to what is legal and what is not, and a lot of people are getting caught up in this right now.
It's been very distressing, I think, on the community. I would tell you that the patients and caregivers that I interact with are not people that are looking to break the law. They're looking for a way to comply with the law, and they've reached out. We've reached out to get some clarity of what law enforcement believes the interpretation of this act should be. But doesn't it vary almost from municipality to county to state level? I mean, it seems everybody's got their own interpretation of this, even different communities. It's not that hard to interpret. Those that say that it's difficult to interpret is because they don't want to see it the way it was intended, which was as a sword, and not as a sword, but as a shield to protect sick people from arrest and the people that are assisting them in cultivating marijuana for them.
I'm wondering if part of this is based on the fact that if you go in the back of a number of magazines, there are all sorts of ads for potential caregivers and everything else. And so it looks as if there's this massive flowering of this industry here in the state. And that may, freak out some law enforcement agencies. How much of it is playing into that?
I believe a lot of it, and the focus is on that instead of what it really needs to be on, which is the patients. This act is about the patients, the sick people that get benefits from using cannabis. I think the criticism of the law is actually not fair. I think the real criticism should be on what I would describe as a breach of contract between the government and the citizens. People pay their $100 to get their medical marijuana card, and it is not being honored across the state. The community has paid over $6 million to the Michigan Department of Community Health. They haven't spent $1 training law enforcement. Law enforcement is oblivious to the concepts of usable material, which is a very specific term used in the statute. They are oblivious to a term which is known as uninterrupted continuous supply to treat the patient's conditions, and they're looking for aspects of the law to find people in violation, and they don't know nor do they care to look, and it's unfair.
A lot of people are suggesting that this is something that should be decided in the courts, that this is the only way that we're going to get any sort of clarity on this, and given the types of cases that are being brought up right now, people are being brought up on dealing charges when in fact they're following the letter of the law when it comes to being a caregiver. We have municipalities shutting down shops because they say they are fronts for drug dealing operations. Are the courts the right place to decide this, given that the federal and state law are sort of incompatible on this?
Well, I believe what needs to happen is there needs to be local implementation of the law, and I think we need to talk about implementation first and foremost. I think the cases that are coming out are being pushed by a few specific county prosecutors that are on a crusade to destroy the Medical Marijuana Act, despite what the voters said otherwise. And I think that when you examine this, these charges should not be brought. I think that the cases that are being brought, if they're going to be brought at all, should be done in the civil courts, not criminal. You don't need to arrest people, raid their houses, take their property, destroy their lives, put them against possibly criminal charges, going to prison. There's civil ways to go about it, declaratory actions and other more civilized remedies to get clarity other than the attack on people that had no intentions of breaking the law at all.
My guest once again is Michael Komorn, a defense attorney who represents medical marijuana patients in the state. And as we're talking about, a number of people have been brought up on charges for illegally trafficking in marijuana when they are following the letter of the law here in the state. I want to bring up a quick case. The city of Dearborn, a judge in Dearborn ruled that medical marijuana is illegal in the state. Now, he doesn't have any authority or any jurisdiction outside of his city, but he says if any case comes in front of him, you're going to be guilty if you've got possession of it, legal or not. How do you address a situation like that where you have an individual judge in a municipality interpreting it in his own way?
I've been in that court and I've had the same argument with him. I believe that he's wrong. I think the appeal will show that he's wrong. He is not a federal judge. There's not a U.S. attorney that's bringing the charges. The prosecution in any case in his courtroom is not going to be based on federal statute. There will not be U.S. Marshals bringing the defendant out. There will be a state prosecutor, a city prosecutor, and that is a state court, district court. He is not a federal judge. And if a federal court case is brought there, then federal law applies. But until such time, he took an oath to follow state law, and that's what I believe he should be doing.
So is that an opportunity for a defense attorney to automatically have this justice recuse himself from any sort of case, given that he's already stated his opinion on this?
I would agree that he's obviously not willing to uphold the law as it's written by the voters, and it's stated his position that he can't be fair, which would be grounds to recuse him. I would agree with that. Well,
we've got only 30 seconds left here. Of course, there's a big case that's likely going to go all the way to the Supreme Court here in the state in regards to a possession case, but where do you see this going right now?
I think it's important that the focus of the community be returned to the patients, that the caregivers that are growing for the patients be allowed to evolve. All the complaints about this miss the point that patients should be entitled to more sophisticated methods of ingestion. People don't want to smoke cannabis. They want to ingest it by other methods. And the arrests on caregivers and the grows are defeating this. And it needs to return to the patients and their needs.
All right. Michael Komorn, a defense attorney who represents medical marijuana patients. We're not done with this story. We'll obviously be talking about it a lot more in future days. This is the Craig Fahle Show on 101.9 WDET.